And I stand here alone with my head in my hands. I've been gone so long, I can't remember where I've been. I'm thinking about back at home, my family and friends, my brothers don't know that I'm there till the end. It's one thing that we all know. It's one thing we all know. No man's left behind. You've seen me once, you've seen me twice. I fight alongside my brothers. There's no man is left behind.
How do you cope day to day? What helps you get through each day?
What helps me get through each day? Well, it's just become a habit. It's just become a part of my life is what I do. And it was a slow process getting into it. It was a lot of spiritual growth, a lot of meditation, being careful where I go, what I do, talking with people, not letting things fester inside of my head, a lot of prayer. Yoga. I do yoga today. I'm just, like I said, I'm just careful of what I do and where I go and how I react to things. You know, I had a lot of help in the beginning, fabulous psychologists who just gave me hints. And that was in the mid-90s, you know, gave me hints on how to live and what to do. Be careful what I did with my life and what I brought into it, which I didn't always listen to. So yeah, it's just a way of life that I've become used to, which I don't even realize that it's something that I need to do on a daily basis anymore. It's just something that I do on a daily basis, which is prayer, meditation, quiet time, solitude. Not isolation, solitude. Big difference. You know, I used to isolate, now it's solitude.
Have you ever exploded in anger?
Yes.
At work, at family, in public?
Yes, all of the above. At work, at family, and in public. With the family, it's kind of difficult because you want to maintain a certain semblance of sanity, you know, when you're at that time of anger or rage. Usually at that point in time it was rage, was where I was. And the last year or two of the extremely difficult time, it was always inside of me. The pressure was always inside of me. I was like a kettle, you know, the steam coming out at all times. And it was hard to hide that, because you want to hide that. You want to look good to people, you know. So, and I had a hard time hiding it, you know. At work, yeah, I've worked at jobs, you know. Marriage, not so much, because again, you know, wanting to keep that marriage alive, you know, I stuffed, you know. Meanwhile, it was the marriage that was killing me. I have done that not so graciously also, you know, not so gracious, it wasn't something that I was proud of. But yet at the same time, it wasn't something I could help. I couldn't control it. There was no controlling it.
Do you have insomnia or sleep issues, and is it always the same dream? Do you get different dreams?
I've had it. I've been very fortunate in the last, I would say, 15 years. my extremely difficult time happened in the 90s, you know. Up until like 2001, 2002, it subsided because I had found so much help, you know. But I had gotten to the point where I was sleeping 2 hours, and then I'd wake up, and I had anxiety coming out of my chest and my head. So it sounded like a bulldozer coming through the bedroom wall. Huge fears that they were coming in, whoever they were. You know, they were coming in the door, and that was it. So I slept for 2 hours, and I would be awake for an hour, and I'd sleep for 2 hours, I'd be awake for 2 hours, and when I got to this, and this went on for a few years, and when I got to the psychologist's office, he said that's what they use for torture. Prisoners up every 2 hours and walk them around the camp and let them go back to sleep and wake them up. I said, well, yeah, that's kind of like what it's like in my home, you know. And so, yeah, and it was exhausting, absolutely exhausting, because there was never any real sleep. The dreams were, they weren't dreams, I'm sorry, they're nightmares. The nightmares that I had were pretty explicit. They were based in reality, my reality anyway, my life, my first marriage. And they wouldn't go away, and I had a life to live. You know, I had a life to live. I had a little girl to bring up, and I didn't realize that there was help for that. I had what I thought was dealing with it for so long. I thought I had dealt with it for so long. But like I said, that teapot, you know, it was a teapot, you know, the steam coming out. It didn't make for such great mothering either, because I would be short, you know, in the morning. And she didn't know. She knew. She's 5 or 7, whatever it was. But yeah, I had it. And like I said, I was very fortunate. You know, I had some really great people help me. And I was free from that for a long time. We were going to work on it, and I was free from that for a long time. And then in August, it started again. It picked up, and it only lasted about 3 weeks, which I was like, wow, you know, 3 weeks. I did that for years. You know, but I immediately got help. I recognized it within 2 days. I said, no, I'm not doing this again. You know, because the crawl back up out of that is too difficult, and it takes too long. So I immediately went to the doctor and confessed, so to speak.
There you go.
You know, I confessed. I said, I need some help.
Would you say it was, it takes almost a superhuman effort to get out of that kind of a spiral?
I couldn't do it on my own.
Right.
Superhuman effort, so to speak, couldn't do it on my own.
Right.
I couldn't do it. And I tried for a few years.
A misconception many people have, that they can do it on their own.
Yeah, if I just, you know, how do they say, pull myself up by my bootstraps,
yeah.
so to speak, you know, well, then I wind up on my rear end, you know, when I do that, you
exactly.
know, and I did that for quite a while, and each time I did that, I got deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole. You know, they talk about the black hole, so to speak, you know, and you know, I learned about good and bad and evil and all that stuff in school when I was a kid, you know, but and I believed it, but I never experienced it.
Indeed.
Until then.
Yeah, and that self-spiral is pretty incredible. It is pretty incredible.
Right. And I didn't realize it until I came up and out of it.
Right, you never do.
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
And it's like, oh, I can breathe again.
Freedom.
There's color again.
I can hear.
I can
see.
smell. The sense is alive.
Nothing short
gosh.
of a miracle.
It is. And then all of a sudden, life is that big a gift.
Right. So yeah, I couldn't do it on my own, but I found a lot of people who could, and then a lot of God business.
Excellent.
Yeah, a lot of God.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you have flashbacks? Does the incident repeat itself in your mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have flashbacks, not as often as they used to be. I've learned, like that doctor told me to be careful, you know. I've learned not to entertain them, you know, to get out, take a walk, go do something else, go to the mall, you know, hit the beach, whatever it was, whatever the season of the year was, go do something else and get that out of my head. Because the longer I entertain it, the longer it's going to stay. And they're horrifying. You know, the memories are horrifying. And, you know, it's horrifying that they happened, and even more horrifying that I was there, and that I witnessed these things, you know. And so the flashbacks, yeah, and they used to, like I said, like everything else, I thought it was normal. I thought people lived like this at the time, you know. I didn't realize that most people don't deal with this kind of stuff, you know. And, you know, so I would wait for them to go away, but like I said, in that difficult time, they just compounded. And more came up, things that I didn't have words for. I only had pictures in my head, but I didn't have words to explain those pictures.
Do you ever get emotionally numb? Not that you stop caring, but that you just don't feel anything.
Definitely. And not so much anymore. I was numb for probably 5 or 6 years. It just was, you know, I mean, I went through my daily routine. I did everything. You know, I took my daughter to school. I paid the bills. I started a business. I did all that stuff. But inside, it was just like frozen. And I really actually remember it was, it stayed like that for a very long time, longer than I'd like to admit now that you mention it, you know, because I could go ahead and do my daily routine,
right.
You know, so I could ignore all of that. It was actually I know exactly when it was. It was in October of 2010, where I felt a shift. I was sitting in my chair in my condo in Florida, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work, get my daughter up, and I felt a shift inside of me, and it was like this. It was like a glacier inside of me that started to break apart. And I was sitting there and I said, wow, you know, I could feel that. And I knew exactly what it was, you know, and it was just like everything changed right then. It was just all changed.
Wow.
You know? And so, yeah, numb. And then, you know, I look at having been very good in relationships, you know, I have a lot of friends and things like that. But, so, yeah, there's numbness, there's fear also. In that numbness, and I'd rather be safe.
Right. Would you say normalcy or that daily routine kind of disguised your numbness for a while because you could go through it?
Yeah, absolutely. The daily routine definitely numbed it, disguised it. Yeah, right. Which is the good part about life. You
sure,
know?
in a way.
You're emotionally dead inside, but you know, you're out there with people, you know, and doing the best that you can.
Right, exactly. You know? Give an example of your hypervigilance.
Crying babies upset me. Not all the time, you know. When I say this to people, they kind of get concerned and, oh, what do you do? Well, you know, most times moms do something about them, you know. And if moms can't do something, if we're in the supermarket or something, I will talk to mom. I will try to, without touching the baby, germs and all that stuff, you know, I will try to appease the situation if I can. Right. So my daughter and I were in the supermarket one day, and this woman, she was beating her kids in the supermarket, and it was way beyond anything that I could stand. And in my case, instead of like trying to get away from her, I felt myself getting closer to her in the store, you know, because I'm trying to figure out how am I going to use my words to see if I can help this woman get through the supermarket without killing her children. She just really, I think about it, she really had no conception of where she was and what she was doing, you know, and the trouble she could have been in. So we're in line behind her, and the kids were just like, they were little. They were like 2 and 4 or 3 and 4, and they were like crying. The tears coming down their faces, and they were sweating. It's Florida, it's hot, no matter what time, it's just hot and humid, you know. And so we didn't have as much as she did. So by the time we got out to the parking lot behind her, I watched this scene, and Emily, my daughter, was behind me, and I was pushing the cart, and these little kids were jumping out of the car. She was running after them. She literally throwing them back into the car, putting them in the seatbelts. These kids were undoing their seatbelts. By the time she got in the driver's seat, they were out of the car again. And I watched this, and she was She was beating these kids. And all of a sudden, I saw my hand go to the back door of the car where the children were. And I opened up the back door, and I looked in, and I sat down next to the kids. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? You know, but it was just, I was there. All of a sudden, I was sitting in her car. And I looked at the kids, and they were just, oh God, I just wanted to hug them. And she turned around, she looked at me, and she said, who the are you? And I said, did you buy any juice? Did you get any cookies in the store? You know, I'm thinking if we can get them to drink something cold, they can calm down. She can calm down. And she said, get the out of my car, you know. And I said, no, wait a minute, you know. And I tried to stay there as long as I could. And these kids were looking at me like they didn't know. They just didn't know. I said, you know, I just wish you would, you know, everybody would calm down. So I eventually, when my senses came back, you know, when I came back to my own senses, and I thought, if this woman has a gun, I'm dead. I'm just so dead. I have to get out of this car, you know. So I got out of the car, and she pulled out, and she just sped away, you know, and I felt bad because I wanted to do something to stop it. And I didn't take a license plate, and I didn't call the police, and I should have called the police. I don't know how those children fared for the rest of the day, you know, and or the rest of their lives. It's been like that with me over the years, and you know, as long as they're okay, you know, but there's just something inside of me that clicks, and I work on that. I work on, he's okay. He's 3. He's okay. They all cry, you know. He's okay. Mom's doing the best that they can, you know. So I've learned over the course of the years to be able to walk away. But sometimes it gets me, you know. If you know the situation, whatever it is, if all elements come in and it's all right to click off in my head, you know, that can happen. But I try to be careful. Yeah.
Are you easily startled? Loud noises or somebody tapping you on the shoulder?
Yes, all the time, definitely. And I didn't realize that was part of this.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that was part. I just thought it was, you know, whatever it was. But yeah, noises, definitely. I usually jump. I had a little dog that I absolutely adored, and it wouldn't stop barking. But it would just, we'd be sitting there watching TV, I'd be crocheting. I mean, there wasn't a breeze in the world, and all of a sudden that little dog would start barking. But she did it often enough that I had to find someplace else for her to live.
Oh,
and it broke my heart because I just loved the dog, you know, but I just couldn't take the stress anymore because it would bring on more reaction, you know. And I don't like that reaction, you know, because I have to work too hard to keep all emotion at bay. And so I had her for a year and a half, and I had to eventually give her up, yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Do you have negative thoughts, and what about?
Yeah, I have negative thoughts. Like I said earlier, I've been very, I don't know, privilege is not the word, lucky is really not the word, fortunate's a word. I've been very fortunate to be free of a lot of this stuff for the last, 10, 15 years. Negative thoughts plagued my every move for a very long time. And it was like I was constantly working against my own thoughts in order to be able to make it through the day. Constantly. I would have, my husband would come home, this is my second husband, my husband would come home from work, I would have dinner on the table, I had the rosary in my hand, and as soon as we would finish dinner, I'd be out walking 3 miles, saying the rosary, and I'd come back home and I had the same frame of mind. It just didn't go away, and it was extreme. It was like it was like walking up a set of extremely steep stairs without any help, and you just had to keep on going whether you liked it or not, but it was always a struggle. Each step was always a struggle. And I did that for a very long time, up until the point where I was living, I was in Naples, and I was sitting on my couch, and it was a Sunday afternoon. He had gone out golfing with friends, and a woman who I knew he liked this woman, you know. So we're not surprises to me, you know. And so I had taken my daughter, and I had put her, not taken her, but I drove her out to my sister-in-law's house, and I was sitting on my sofa. I was going to kill myself that day. That was the day. It was the last Sunday of January in 1998. And it's interesting how we remember these exactly when. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have another little chihuahua. She was sitting with me on the sofa. And the depression was so bad that suicide was the only option. It was the only way for me to go. Interestingly enough, I didn't have any way of doing it, but that didn't stop the thoughts. You know, that wasn't stopping the thoughts, because I would have found something, you know. And so I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, it was an apartment complex. All of a sudden, the fire alarm went off, and the fire alarm was like down a little hallway straight ahead from the sofa, so I was actually facing it straight on. And it was so piercing and so loud that I had to pick the dog up and go outside. And if you remember before what I said about, you know, how do I stop the thoughts? Now I get up, I go outside, I take a walk, I take a drive, I go to the mall. So I get up and I go outside. The parking lot's just filled with these firemen, policemen. I mean, the whole neighborhood was out. I'm thinking, oh, for crying out loud. You know, it disturbed my process, my train of thought, you know, which was suicide. So, turns out I had lived there for 2 years. There was never a fire alarm before or after that, you know, but some kids had gone through and pulled the thing, thought they were funny, and I think they were messengers from God. So I came back into the apartment, and I sat down on the sofa, and the circle of thought had not changed. The circle of thought was still there, you know, suicide would be a really great thing today. Why should I be here anyway, you know? And so it was another hour or so, and the phone rang. And it was my husband's best buddy, you know, and he said, "What are you doing, Jude?" So I said, "I've known this man for years," and I said, I can't even believe I said the words. I said, I'm just sitting here trying to figure out why I shouldn't commit suicide today, you know, and he immediately got into, you know, I can get you in the hospital, don't do anything, you know, I understand, you know, because he'd been watching me, you know, he knew I was going down, you know. He said, so, you know, so we just talked for a little while, and then we hung up, and he called back a few times that day, you know, because he said, I can get you in the hospital. Interesting, you know, you're as sick as you can possibly be, and you don't realize it, but the last place you want to go is for help. Yeah. You know, and so that was that. You know, we kept talking throughout the day, but it didn't relieve the pressure inside. It didn't take away my want not to be here anymore, you know, not to feel this pain anymore that was excruciating for me. And so my husband came home. He came home from the golf course, and he was really a gorgeous man, very tall, you know, so he just kind of sashays in with all that 6'4" body of his, and looks at me, and he knew I was out of my mind. He knew I was out of my mind. So, you know, an argument ensued, and he went to pick up the telephone to call the cops on me, you know. And I pulled the telephone out of the wall, and I said, "You're not going to do that." My brother lived across the hallway from me with his wife at that time, and my husband walked out the door, knocked on his door, and just said, "You got to come get her," you know. So he did. He came and he got me, and it was so interesting because it took me a long time to realize what happened in the next 5 or 7 minutes. I was sitting at their dining room table, and they had called another woman that I knew who I used to run from all the time because she was a big Bible thumper, and I didn't want to hear what she had to say, And she just started reading to me out of the Bible that, I could do all things through him, And just different little verses that, I don't know how she knew exactly which ones to read, but she knew exactly which ones to read. And it was, a weight was lifted from me. And, like we were talking about before, the vision changed, the hearing changed, everything changed. Everything changed for me. It was a little bit of a slow process, but I could feel it as it was going along. And within a half an hour, I was back apologizing to my husband for my behavior, It didn't stop the bulldozers from coming through the wall yet, because I hadn't hit the psychologist's office yet, But those were my, haunting, days, and, I wasn't thinking right. And I have never been back there again.
Thank God.
Thank God, absolutely. And it took me a long time to realize that also, that I have never been back there again, not even close. And I'm so grateful for that, because there's a lot of work, a lot of pain in that life, a lot of pain that you carry around. Some of you get hump-shouldered, and you can't walk, you stop putting makeup on, you don't want to do anything, and that's the isolation. That's where the isolation comes in,
Right.
Which is not what I do anymore.
Good. Do you ever feel hopeless or guilty about anything?
Not so much anymore. I felt hopeless for quite a while. It took a long time for all those things to go away because it wasn't finished. After that Sunday, the next year was extremely difficult, and my son, my adopted son, had been arrested for murder too. He stole a car, hit and killed a young high school student, with the police chasing him in helicopters and everything. And that was July of '97. That was before that Sunday. That was in the newspaper a lot. That incurred a lot of paranoia. On my part. I couldn't keep my head straight. And I didn't know what was self-preservation and what was paranoia. I couldn't tell the difference if you paid me, And so after that January, after that episode with the police, the firemen and everything, my father died in July of that year. He had been dying, he had Alzheimer's, and he was passing away, so it was a constant saying goodbye to him. And he died in July of '98, and then my husband finally walked out in August of '98, and then my son was sentenced to 40 years in prison in December of '98, and I was also divorced in December of '98. And then my best friend, who I had been taking care of for 2 years, died in February of '99. So in 6-7 months, I lost all the men in my life that I tried to trust. I don't know how else to say that, and my best friend. And yeah, I laid on the floor in the living room for a very long time. Hopeless, helpless. I saw no future. I saw nothing. Yet I was still at the psychologist's, on a weekly to bi-weekly to monthly basis, depending upon what was going on. I had known this man for a very long time. Until a girl I knew said, my dad has a little catering deli, and he could use some help. What do you think? I said, well, I'll give that a whirl. I knew I needed to get out. I needed to do something. And I always loved food. I always loved, prepping food and, having friends over and parties and stuff like that. So that was the beginning of my emergence into my new life, was working at that catering deli. And those people, I don't know if they knew they surrounded me, but they did. I don't feel hopeless anymore. I'm actually filled with hope. I didn't realize that hope was a faith, hope, and charity. It was a virtue. I just thought it was wishful thinking. Hope is not wishful thinking. It's a virtue, which makes me feel a little bit better about myself. myself, you know. I take that little inventory of the good, you know. And that's because I always, I hope so, I hope so, you know. But so not so much anymore, and which I'm really grateful for, because that's a difficult life, to be hopeless.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of self-pity in there too.
Right.
Which kind of, you know, congeals with each other, and it's hard to separate, you know.
Well, and it becomes, that's the upper part of the toilet bowl swirl, I call it.
Yeah.
You just start and then start to feel bad, and it adds to itself.
Everything else comes in, yeah.
Right. So with that, did you ever have self-destructive behavior? Any kind of gambling on the future?
Self-destructive behavior, I drank like a fish when I was 12 to 32, if that counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. That counts. I did as much drugs as I could,
right?
You know, short of heroin. And that's not really a secret to anybody that I know, you know. But I drank for oblivion for as long as I could. And after I gave up booze, I smoked as many cigarettes as I possibly could. I smoked myself into a COPD, you know, which I deal with on a daily basis. I work with that, you know. I walk, I take care of myself today, you know. And I haven't had a cigarette in 28 years. Moving,
yeah, always
jobs,
jumping from place to place.
Little things like that, you
Jobs
know, which
never
are not
kept.
little things, but moving and
Relationships.
Jobs, relationships,
How do your symptoms affect those around you? Family, relationships, etc.
There aren't many left. I have 7 sisters and a brother. I don't really have relationships with all of them. I have tried. You know, most times in my life I've been that square peg in the round hole. And if I don't fit, you know, I've learned now, if I don't fit, I don't fit. You know, I back out, I walk away. My daughter knows me. You know, she knows me very well. She says, I haven't seen you smoke and I haven't seen you drink, Mom, but I've sure seen you crazy, you know. And back that time with the telephone in 98, and I was, my favorite place was the closet in the bedroom, because we lived in a small apartment, and so I would sit in the dirty laundry and just scream in the closet, because I just had no other outlet, you know. There was no place else to go. I couldn't leave her, you know, so I'd be screaming into the dirty laundry. And one night she came to the door and she knocked on the closet. She knocked on, I giggle now a little bit, but you know, because now I've said it so many times, but at that time it was so dramatic, and it was so horrifying for her, this poor kid, you know. Knocks on the door, and I said, yes. And she opens the door, she says, Mom, where's the calculator? So I said, it's in the cabinet on top of the telephone. The telephone was still on the wall. And she said, okay, thank you. And she closed the door, and I'm sitting in this closet saying, oh my God, what's wrong with this picture? There's something wrong here, you know, yet still not knowing, you know, what was to be. I choose carefully who I befriend, who I remain friends with, who I tell what to. I do not care for controversy. I don't care for confrontation. I don't have it in me anymore. I'll stand up from the table and say, I love you, man, and I'm out of here, I gotta go. I've done that many, many times, you know, just I have to, you know, and not in anger or anything else, but in self-preservation, and I do. I love you all, but I have to go over here now. I can't stay here, you know. My brother died, I had a restraining order against him, you know. I just, there's a few sisters who I keep in contact with, you know, but my youngest sister told me one day, years ago, she said, Judy, I wouldn't trade my worst day in my life for your best. And it took me a long time to try to I'm lousy at math. I can't get back, you know, that can't go backwards and stuff. And I didn't know, what does that mean? what does that mean? Was that a compliment or was it a derogatory comment? You know, I just couldn't figure out which one.
Well, you can take it either way, it seems.
Yeah.
You can also say, well, yeah, maybe it was a little derogatory on the face of it, but underneath it, she's saying, I'm so proud of how strong you are, and I can't believe I would be able to do it.
I never thought of it that way until this absolute moment.
Silver lining king.
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm not here.
And thank God it's your life and not mine.
Exactly. I can empathize with the best of them,
Yeah.
but again, that little tiny barrier
Right.
here, it's okay.
I have a barrier all around me. Yes,
Sure.
absolutely. And I stay peaceful that way. You know, peace in my mind is number one. Number one. I have to keep it quiet up there. You know, and life is not quiet. Life is messy.
Yeah.
Life is messy.
And it will walk right up behind you and
That's
tap
right.
you on the
It'll
shoulder
walk
and
right up behind you.
or knock on the closet door.
Yeah. Say, where's the
turn
calculator?
your head inside out for a minute.
Is the
What
phone still there? It's under the phone. Yeah.
It's over there. What do you personally think will help solve most of the issues around PTSD?
Public knowledge, understanding from your friends and family, the right to fall apart. You know, have the right to fall apart when you do, and not be judged for it. I fell apart in August. It'd been the first time in years. Like I said earlier, you know, I recognized it immediately, but it wasn't, recognition didn't stop it. You know, I had to take some action, and it was only for 3 weeks, you know, and my dearest friends who know me were aware of it and kept calling me. You know, if I didn't call them, they called me to make sure that I was safe and everybody around me was safe, you know. And so, you know, I just think, you know, your close friends knowing it and finding out more about it. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know what was going on in my head. And in that, it gets worse. If I don't admit it to somebody and put my hand out and ask for help, I won't get any. I won't get any. And then I get sicker, and I don't like that. Like I said, you know, that swirling descent into hell in the 90s was more than I could stand. Yeah, more than I could stand. I don't think I have the strength to do that anymore.
No, I would definitely need help if I hit that bowl again.
Yeah,
And
I don't have the strength to, you know, and that is why I'm ever vigilant, that you were talking about earlier. That is why I'm very vigilant, because I don't like that pain.
yeah, and no one should have to come back from it.
No,
No one should have to climb up out of it, you know. But,
try to get into life.
yeah. What would you consider the intensity of your symptoms now?
Almost zero,
As compared to then?
which was 200%.
Wow.
You know, more percentages if you could put them on there.
Sure.
You know, right now, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, I shouldn't say zero. I should say maybe 5%, because the thoughts still come. I see a baby crying, I can't lie and say the thoughts don't come, you know, of protecting them or whatever it is, you know. They don't need protecting, their parents are right there, you know. This is their life, you know, so I'm learning that. And you can't really learn all of that just sitting in a doctor's office. You can get those answers, but you have to live it in order for it to go in. I do anyway. I have to live it in order for it to come into my head and stay there and be recorded in my head, you know, and change the old tapes, so to speak, to change those old tapes.
Can you tell us how you've been successful? How you got to where you are today with your PTSD?
Well, just like what I said before, I'm not willing to go through all of that again. I don't know if I have another recovery in me. Yeah, I look at how intense it was back there. I mean, I'm contemplating suicide in the fire department, in the, you know, sheriff's departments out in the parking lot, and I went back in, and that changed nothing in my head. Nothing. It didn't say, geez, Judy, you should have talked to somebody, and you should have gotten in the ambulance.
Exactly.
You know, I should have gotten in the ambulance, you know, so So what I do today is I just keep doing the same things, and maybe just going out a little bit further from there, from those places. I go to church on a regular basis. I pray on a daily basis. I do spiritual readings in the mornings. On a day-to-day basis, I walk every day. I'm so glad. Yesterday I went down the boardwalk. It's just the ocean, the sky, the freedom, the air, everything. It just washes over me. I started yoga about a year ago, which I go 5 times a week because I have to. If I want to be a grandma to my little 3-year-old son, or if I want to maintain my wonderful relationship with my daughter and her husband and his son, I have to continue doing everything on a daily basis. Otherwise, I lose all of that.
Almost as if progress gets taken away. Yeah.
Progress gets taken away, and then you're way back further than you were before.
Exactly. You
That's
backslide.
too much work.
You're right. You backslide faster. Almost.
Yeah, and I had a friend who would say, he used to drink a lot, and he said if he ever picked up a drink again, he doesn't have enough time. He's too old. He doesn't have enough time in his life ever again to gather all that time that he's had sober. And I see that in the PTSD. I don't think I have enough time in my life anymore to recover. If I look back and see what it took to get out of where I was, and I don't want to dedicate the rest of my life to coming up and out of that hole again. I want to live the rest of my life, and so I do what I know I have to do, and I still listen to that psychologist from like the 90s when he said, be careful what you do in your life. Like you said before, be ever vigilant, watch the relationships, watch what you do, where you go and who you speak with, and, not just the supermarket and things like that, but, long term, and, stay out of places that could be dangerous for you, So it really simplifies life a lot. It really does.
It is.
I have a schedule, and I keep it, and my life is very simple.
Right.
But it's become also very spiritual.
Good.
Because I had to pick myself up and step up out of all that muck and mire. And the only place to go from there is into the spiritual life, with God. And so that's what I do. That's what I do. I look back at that time and I just think, I can't even believe I was there. And how did I get there? It's taken me many years to, how did I get there? How to answer that question? It started this little, But and I recognize it in other people if I see it. And if I see it in other people, I'll let them get away with it once, twice. 3rd time, I'm calling you on it. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to talk to you about it. Because I know when somebody says, I was thinking about suicide. Well, when you think about suicide, you're thinking about suicide. And that's real. And it's a how do they say? It's a permanent solution to a temporary situation. But it's a certain gift also, if you look at it that way, to have been through all of this and to be able to talk to the next person about it, to recognize the mother in the supermarket with the kids and everything's out of order. It really is a gift to be able to, turn to the next person standing next to you and say, can I help you? Is there something I can say? Can I share my experience with you that might keep you from doing some damage to yourself or to others?
So has this made you more empathetic, this part of your life?
Absolutely.